What's up, everyone? This is Corey Porter back with another video for y'all today. So today we're going to be looking at Loki Season 1, Episode 2, The Variant. We're going to go through the non-spoilers first, kind of get a review, and then we'll kind of get into the more spoilerly kind of details. So basically where this episode is that we're continuing off where we left off last week, where now Loki is integrated into the TVA. We kind of go on a mission or so with him and with Owen Wilson's Morbius, and he's kind of dealing with all that, whether they should start trusting Loki, yada, 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 and then Loki shenanigans ensues. I'll go ahead and tell you this. I thought this episode was really good. I thought this episode was much better than the first episode, which I thought was good as well. This one's really more of your plot-heavy type episode, I guess. This is really kind of the kicking off point into what the show is going to be. There's a lot of things that kind of get digested here in this episode that really give you a good idea of where the show is going to go on from here. Ultimately, I do think it's a really good episode, really solid episode, and it really kind of leaves you with a good kick or a good punch at the end of it where you're really ready for that next episode right away. Moving on into spoilers in 3, 2, 1, go. So we know who the variant is now. There's a lot of speculation about this, but the variant is officially Lady Loki or Miss Loki, whatever you want to call her. I know there's a lot of speculation whenever there was some, not concept art, but set photos leaked a while back where we saw, I can't think of the actress's name, but she was in an armor reminiscent of Loki. It's her. She's Lady Loki, and so that's the variant that they're going after. We kind of start off the episode. We're in a Renaissance fair where some of the TVA are going in, and they're tracking down, or they're hoping to track down the variant here. We get a little I say a cameo. It's probably not really an intentional cameo, but there is an actress that looks shockingly similar to Catherine Hahn from WandaVision. Again, I don't necessarily think that's supposed to be her, but it could be a cool little nod if it is. I know everyone is kind of jumping ship on, getting real excited about, oh, did we see Peggy Carter at the end of episode 1, or during episode 1, that brief little bit. This is a much more substantial scene because she actually has dialogue, she actually speaks. Again, I don't think it necessarily is her, but it could be, which is actually really interesting if that is the case. But anyway, the TVA, they go into a little tent area, and then they get ambushed by Loki, or the variant at this point. We don't know who it is quite yet, that starts taking over their minds and using one of them to beat up the other ones, and then ultimately he takes one of them, or she takes one of them hostages. Move on back to the TVA. We've got Loki. He is sitting at a desk. He has his own little desk now, and he's reading a magazine over jet skis, which comes up to be a little bit important a little bit later, but he's also being quizzed by Miss Minutes over kind of the rules, the TVA, all their terminology, and every kind of thing that they need to be aware of, which I think is kind of interesting. So we move on from there. Some more stuff happens, and so Morbius takes Loki to this site at the Renaissance Fair so they can try to investigate and kind of see what's going on. Loki starts kind of playing it up like, oh, I really know what's going on here, yada yada, you need to listen to me, and ultimately he's just really stalling for time. He really doesn't have a clue quite yet what's going on. And then we kind of get more into Loki's personality here, why he's doing what he's doing, why Morbius is doing what he's doing, why he's so willing to trust Loki or use Loki. And he has a really good line where he's like, you can choose whatever one you want here. I'm either calling you, I see a little boy that's scared in the cold, or I see someone that's just basically a means to an end so I can get what I need to get done here. You can really tell that Morbius, his boss, the judge, who again, I don't remember any of the actresses' names or the actors' names, basically tells him that you have a fondness for broken things. And Morbius kind of is taken aback by that, but you can kind of really see that, how much he's willing to kind of go into Loki and try to get him corrected or fixed. We also learn a really good important thing is that Morbius himself has not actually met the Timekeepers. There's also several shots of statues of the Timekeepers, which they focus on quite a bit, particularly the one in the middle that may or may not be Kang. I can kind of see some semblance of what they could use as the Kang character, which I think could be interesting there. So anyway, Morbius and Loki start investigating on why or where, any type of clues that they can kind of find to locate the variant and get this guy caught. Ultimately, Loki, while doing some research and this, that, and another, he finds that there's actually kind of a loophole or a crack in the security of the TVA, where if you go to what's called an apocalypse event, which is something would happen where the timeline would be destroyed, everyone there would be killed. An example that's used in the show would be Ragnarok for Asgard. Right before Ragnarok, if you were to go during that time, you could pretty much do whatever you want, and you're not going to create a time variant because the whole area is going to be wiped clean anyway, so there's nothing to branch off. And so by using this, Loki and Morbius are able to figure out that that's likely where the variant is hiding. They're going to some type of an apocalypse event and then causing all sorts of crazy stuff happening. Or that's where they're kind of using as their base of operations to kind of hop back and forth. Then they go back to that package of gum that they found in episode 1, and they kind of pinpoint, when was this gum available, and then they go and they find when were apocalyptic type events happening during that same time frame, which gets them to go to Alabama in 2050, where a big massive tornado comes and just basically destroys this whole town and everybody in it dies. Because everyone's held up in basically this big Walmart-like convenience grocery store. So they take a whole crew, they go to this grocery store, or whatever you want to call it, and ultimately this is where the variant is. The variant really, what looks like, is set a trap for them. We see that they've got all the little cleansing bombs posted up everywhere. While they've separated out, Loki is with the security officer from episode 1, the one that he put the time collar on. They kind of join up because she refuses to let Loki out of her sight, and ultimately end up running into someone that's been mind controlled by Loki, the variant, and then the variant controls her and then other people, and then we start having a Loki on Loki conversation. I think this is actually a really good job by this actress, kind of playing as Tom Hiddleston's Loki. I thought that was actually kind of really cool to see. That was real fun. And it's kind of these other characters all in general just playing with the mannerisms and just the way that Loki speaks, which I think was really cool. I thought that was really well done. So anyway, it ultimately ends up with the other group with Morbius. They find the TVA agent that was kidnapped. She's tied up in a room and she's just rambling incessantly. They can't really quite make it up, but ultimately they figure out that she says that she gave it away. And what did you give away? I gave out where to find the timekeepers, how to find the timekeepers, and then that kind of gives you an idea of what's going on now. And so then we get back to Loki and the variant, and he takes over this big burly guy and just starts beating the crap out of Loki. There's this big fight that's pretty cool. We get to see a little bit of Loki's magic. He actually uses a Roomba to try to hit the other guy and use it to defend himself, which is kind of cool and pretty fun in and of itself. Ultimately, this leads into the variant actually coming out and revealing itself, and whenever she takes it off, we see that it's Lady Loki. And then, how we talked about that, we see all the little cleansing time bombs everywhere. That clock is running down, and what Loki thinks is happening is that she's there to basically wipe out the TVA that's there. It hadn't occurred to him, because then we see it, like right before the timer goes off, the little TVA portals show up underneath the bombs, and we don't know where they go. We flash forward to at the TVA, where the guys are watching the monitors, watching the sacred timeline, and then all of a sudden we start seeing all these branches, like hundreds of thousands of branches just going off, and they're going crazy. And so what we come to find out is that Lady Loki has sent these bombs across the sacred timeline. Who knows where, how many, everything like that. When we saw a vision of it, there was hundreds of them, thousands of them. And so she's created these isolated incidents across the sacred timeline, which now has branched off, creating their own separate individual timelines. Theoretically creating what potentially could be the multiverse. We'll see. I don't know if they're going to go that crazy deep in a TV show like this, but maybe, especially because it's Loki, so there's a little bit more interest in it. So anyway, she reveals herself to be Lady Loki. And, Loki at this point, our Loki is still at this point thinking that all this is dealing with him. Again, that's Loki's ego. And she makes the comment, "It's not about you." And then she gets off in a portal and takes off. And then Loki's just kind of standing there. The portal hasn't quite disappeared yet, but here comes Morbius and the TVA. And you can hear them, they're yelling, "Loki, don't go away, don't go, don't do it." And then Loki shoots off through the portal right before it closes. And that's where the episode ends. Ultimately, I think what's happening, we've seen some of this in some of the trailer footage, is that we see Loki and the variant with the hood on and everything fighting in the TVA. So what I'm thinking is that the whole plan here was that she wanted to create all these separate timelines and everything like that. So then the TVA basically all have to evacuate and then go out to try to stop these, leaving the defenses at the headquarters minimal, if anybody. And so now that she knows where the headquarters are, thanks to the hostage she took, now that's where she's going, because she's trying to get to the timekeepers. Our Loki has made a comment about how he wants to run the TVA, and she says that's not what she's about. Ultimately, I think she wants to destroy the TVA. She wants to get rid of the timekeepers, because again, kind of the theme that they've been talking about is destiny. Like, do you have the free will to make your own decisions? And, Morbius has told Loki, not really. Like, it's basically what the timekeepers say is going to happen. That's what happens. And so ultimately, I think that's kind of what the whole premise of the show is that maybe we get rid of the timekeepers and now we have our own, people can set their own destinies. Anything can happen at that point instead of it being predetermined. But like I said, all in all, I think this is just a great episode. I do think it's better than the first episode. And now we're at the point where we're no longer any of the journalists or the people who got review codes to see episode 1 and episode 2. We're caught up now. From this point forward, theoretically, everybody watching should be watching blank. We should be all starting together. But anyway, guys, that is it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about Loki season 1 and how everything's going. Was season 2 good? Was episode 2 good? Episode 2 bad? But anyway, leave it down in the comments, and we will see y'all next time.